Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Tidbits Art History. My name is Kristina Koopman, and as always, thanks for joining me. I thought it only fitting on this All Hallows Eve that we talk about an artwork that has captured the imaginations of audiences for the last century. Edvard Munch's The Scream has become kind of a touchstone in pop culture. My first memory of seeing it is actually from the Looney Tunes, funny enough. Everything from Bugs Bunny to the 90s classic horror villain Ghostface in the Scream franchise has made this piece so ubiquitous that it's easy to forget what a stir it caused when it was first created. This artwork, created in Norway in 1893, has become one of the most iconic images in all of art, seen as symbolizing the anxiety of the human condition. So, do your very best Kevin McAllister face in Home Alone, and let's take a closer look. In his diary in an entry headed 22nd January 1892, artist Edvard Munch wrote, quote, "One evening I was walking along a path. The city was on one side and the fjord below. I felt tired and ill. I stopped and looked out over the fjord. The sun was setting, and the clouds turning blood red. I sensed a scream passing through nature. It seemed to me that I heard the scream. I painted this picture, painted the clouds as blood. The color shrieked. This became the scream." End quote. Again, he later described his inspiration for this now famous painting. Quote, "I was walking along the road with two friends. The sun was setting. Suddenly the sky turned blood red. I paused, feeling exhausted, and leaned on the fence. There was blood and tongues of fire above the black-blue fjord and the city. My friends walked on, and I stood there trembling with anxiety, and I sensed an infinite scream passing through nature." End quote. The scene identified in his now famous painting was identified as being the view from a bridge overlooking Oslo, Norway. Its proximity to both a slaughterhouse and mental health facility, a so-called insane asylum, has also been hypothesized as a source of inspiration for the painting. In 1978, scholar Robert Rosenblum suggested that the screaming, genderless creature in the foreground of the painting was actually inspired by a Peruvian mummy, which Munch could have seen at the 1889 World's Fair in Paris. This mummy, which was buried in a fetal position with its hands alongside its face, served as inspiration for many artists of the day and appears in many artworks. All in all, Munch created 4 versions of this piece, 2 in paint and 2 in pastels. The first painted version was the first exhibited, debuting in 1893. It is now in the collection of the National Gallery of Norway in Oslo. A pastel version from that same year, which may have been a preliminary study, is in the collection of the Munch Museum, also in Oslo. The version held by the National Museum of Norway has a pencil inscription in small lettering in the upper left-hand corner. It translates to, quote, "could only have been painted by a madman." It can only be seen on close examination of the painting. This had been presumed to be a comment by a critic or a visitor to an exhibition. It was first noticed when the painting was exhibited in Copenhagen in 1904, 11 years after this version was painted. Following infrared photography, study of the handwriting now shows that the comment was added by Munch. The theory has been put forward that Munch added the inscription after the critical comments made when the painting was first exhibited in Norway in 1895. There is good evidence that Munch was deeply hurt by that criticism, being sensitive to the mental illness that was prevalent in his family and his love for the artwork. When we look closely at the painting, we see thick bands of contrasting colors. The figure's head is clearly the focal point of the piece. The lines of the bridge, railing, and even the organic curves of the waterway all lead directly to the face. Void of color, it's as if the figure has been leached of all its life by the very saturated background. The perspective appears stretched and elongated, pulling us back into a tunnel by stretching the foreground across the middle ground and background. The piece focuses more on mood and feeling than technical accomplishment. This is a common characteristic of the 1890s symbolist movement. He was especially concerned with the expressive representation of emotions and personal relationships. On February 12, 1994, the same day as the opening ceremony of the 1994 Winter Olympics in Norway, two men broke into the National Gallery in Oslo and stole their version of the Scream, leaving a note that read, quote, "Thanks for the poor security." After the gallery refused to pay a ransom demand of $1 million in March, Norwegian police set up a sting operation with assistance from the British police, and the painting was recovered undamaged in May of the same year. Authorities tried and convicted 4 men in connection with the theft, but they were released on an appeal on legal grounds. The British agents involved in the sting operation had entered Norway under false identities, and the case was dismissed. The Scream by Edvard Munch is one of the most famous paintings in the world. It's pretty obvious why. Its expression and the way the pain and the anxiety of the figure are depicted is universal for all human beings. We have all, at least once in our lives, felt this way. We have not only wanted to scream publicly, we have felt like the whole world around us was bursting. The scream became the symbol of the condition of the modern man, and has somehow only become more relevant in the wake of a global pandemic. Is this expression of human anxiety and the human condition perhaps even more relevant now than it was 100 years ago? Personally, I'd like to think yes.